Greetings and salutations. I hope this video finds you doing well. So, welcome to the music room, boys and girls. We're back here once again, and we're going to be talking about records today, and we're going to be talking about spending a lot of money on one record. Was it worth it? Before we get into that, I just want to show you something real quick, and it does have to do with the video, so humor me for a moment, please. This is a mid-1970s pressing of Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill LP, their very first album from 1972. Not an original ABC pressing, mind you. It is a rainbow label from the mid-70s. Here's one of the same ilk. By the way, the Can't Buy a Thrill album I would call very good plus. This one is near mint. Once again, a rainbow ABC pressing of their second album, Countdown to Ecstasy. Yet again, another rainbow pressing. So that would make it mid-70s. The original had a black label with the square ABC logo. I remember because I had one at one point. This is also a near mint ABC. This is Katy Lied from 1975. This is not an ABC pressing. This is a later MCA pressing when they reissued the Steely Dan catalog after taking over ABC. That would have been sometime in the early to mid 80s. Now things start to really get good. The Royal Scam from 1976. This is the original ABC pressing, the rainbow label. That is an original. We're pretty much original pressings from this point on. This is an EP that was put out called Plus Fours. It was a series that ABC was doing, and on this it is Do It Again, Dallas, and then they have Haitian Divorce, and they also have another tune called, what is the name of that song? Let me look here real quick. It's Sail the Waterway. Dallas, by the way, was the very first song that Steely Dan released on a 45. Jim Hodder, who played drums in the early days, actually sang on that particular record. Good song. Didn't go anywhere on the charts. This, by the way, is an LP cut at 45 RPM, so there's 2 songs on each side. Very high quality. This is the 12-inch promo single of Josie, released to radio. 33 1/3, one song. It's the same song on each side. White label. 1977's Asia, probably the most storied of the Steely Dan albums and revered by audiophiles. This is an original pressing cut by Bernie Grundman in 1977. After that, we have their double greatest hits collection, greatest hits 72 to 78. This is a rainbow ABC release, so it is an original. Before MCA took over ABC, that happened about 1979. From 1980, this is an original pressing of Gaucho on MCA Records after they had sucked up ABC. And that was the last Steely Dan album of new stuff for 20 years. Walter and Donald broke up for a while, went different ways. Also released about 1980 was this. This is Steely Dan Gold on MCA Records. This is sort of an addendum to the Greatest Hits collection. This is all the stuff they forgot to put on Greatest Hits, plus stuff from Gaucho. And finally, here's Donald Fagen's solo album from 1982, The Nightfly. This is a stock Warner release, nothing really special about it. Pressed sometime probably in the 1980s. And all of these are in really good condition. So I showed you all that just to kind of drive home the point that I'm more than a casual fan. I am a Steely Dan super fan, to be exact. And in the year 2000, they released their first album of original material in 20 years since Gaucho. And it's this album right here, Two Against Nature. At that point in time, I was very plugged into what was going on in the record industry. I was working in radio, and I used to read all of the industry magazines. At that time, I was getting the Gavin and Radio and Records, and also Mix magazine. So I knew a lot about this album before it came out. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I remember, this was done on like an early version of Pro Tools. This was all recorded to hard drive, and then it was mixed down to high-resolution digital. And there was even an article in Mix magazine where Roger Nichols, the chief engineer for Steely Dan and Donald Fagen for years and years, he didn't like the way that Warner Brothers Giant subsidiary, which is what this is on, Giant Records, was pressing the discs. He got a test pressing and didn't like it. So he went back and did his own glass mastering on an ancient Denon machine so he could get a 63-minute format CD. And he actually gave them the glass master to press. So this was a big deal. And at that time, I remember reading that they were not planning to release this on LP. And at that time, I wasn't into the whole vinyl thing. I had gotten out of it, and I was collecting CDs, and that was it. Now, that's 25 years ago now. We're talking about memories there. So a couple of weeks ago, I was on Facebook, and I am a member of a couple of collectors groups for records, especially 45s, but this one pops up from a group that I'm not in that they were recommending to me, as Facebook would do, and a guy was showing off his Steely Dan collection, and what did he have but this? Two Against Nature on a vinyl record. I went, wait a minute, I didn't know that that had been released. This blew my mind. So I started doing a little research online, and this is when I found Acoustic Sounds. Now, I have heard of Acoustic Sounds and Chad Kassem and Quality Pressings before, but every time that I had ever heard of it, they were always these really expensive Foo-foo records. I mean, it was like a crazy amount of money for an album, and I just went, I'm not doing that. I'd rather just, take my luck finding it on eBay or at a yard sale. Maybe I'll find an original. But this one caught my eye. And the reason why is because ever since this CD came out, I have been telling people that this is the best sounding CD I've ever heard. Now behind, as a background here, you see that I have a whole wall of CDs, okay? So I have a lot to compare this to. Because of the way this was recorded and the fact that it was digital from day one and they knew exactly what they wanted, I always figured that this would be a really good sounding CD, because if you are creating art to a medium, then you will make allowances for that medium's limitations, okay? So this is definitely the best sounding CD I ever heard. And it just got me curious. So I went researching and I found some videos from Acoustic Sounds, which is the record company that reissued this. Of course, it's Acoustic Sounds, Analog Productions, and QRP. It's all the same place out in Salina, Kansas, and it's all run by this guy named Chad Kassem, and he puts out these super high quality records, right? And they're worth they cost a lot of money. I got to thinking about it. I was like, I wonder what that's going to sound like, because this album has been spread out over 2 LPs, cut at 45 RPM. Now, the disc runs about 51 minutes and a few odd seconds. So if you stop and think about that, that's about 15 minutes per side, right? The advantage of running a record at 45 over 33 is that you have higher velocity under the stylus. So this minimizes things like inner groove distortion, and it makes it so that the stylus can track it easier on playback. They can get more level on the record, and all kinds of nice, interesting little perks come along when you do that, when you make records like this. So I said, I got to hear this. I've got to hear this. I've got to know what this sounds like, because it was mastered at Masterdisc, and it was done from a high-resolution file. Now, you may say, hold on a second. You're talking about this is all digital going to analog. How could it sound better than the CD, and why would you care what it sounded like? Well, first of all, when I play back my CD, I'm stuck at 44.116, right? That's what we got. 44.1 is the sampling rate, 16 is the bit depth. 16 bits is all you got to express all the levels from 0 to full blast. And even though I am playing them back on a good CD player, I've got an original Sony CD changer from about 2003 when they had introduced their 20-bit DAC, which is a very good sounding DAC. And then I also have a Tascam Professional CD player. So you take this already very carefully mastered Foo-foo CD and you put it in there, it does sound really good. But at the mastering lab, they are going to have a DAC that you and I, as mere peasants, could never actually get, because they can spend the kind of money that we can't. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on this stuff. Not only will they have the best sounding custom-built DAC that you've ever heard, the clock that they feed the timing frequency to it with is probably an atomic clock in and of itself. It's absolutely dead perfect. We can't do this in a home setup, even if you go out and spend thousands of dollars on a DAC. It's just unobtainable. So when they do that, and then they cut it to one of these super records here, running at high speed, it's probably going to sound a little better than the original CD. So I wanted to hear it. And I just spent the hour it took to listen to this record, and I have to tell you that I am totally, completely, absolutely blown away. I heard things on this album that I have never heard before. And I have played this album in some really high-end equipment through the years. This particular CD, any CD player I came across, this was my test disc. This one right here, because this is the best sounding CD I own. The second best sounding CD I own is Dave Brubeck Live at Carnegie Hall on Sony. It's very hard to find these days, but if you can come across it, it's unbelievably, it sounds unbelievably good. They used DSD at that time, digital, to do that, and then dithered it down to 44.116. Anyway, this just sounds amazing. You are in the music. I heard details that I have never heard before. One of the big standouts was Negative Girl, which is one of the cuts on this record. And it's not one of my favorite songs on the record, but there's a vibraphone solo in the middle, which is actually recorded in stereo, so you can, as the player goes up and down the vibes there, you can hear it, and it just jumps out at you. And there's a guitar solo on there at the end as well, where the guy's doing some very interesting, playing like 32nd notes or 64th notes at the end, a very weird kind of thing. And it all just jumps out at you, and it's so clean. You are in the middle of the music. Whereas the digital sounds good, but it still has that effect of being just a little bit distant from you, like you're not quite hearing everything. And also, one of the things on this particular disc that I've noticed is there's a slight metallic feeling to the bass. No matter what I play it in, it doesn't matter. It's got this metallic flavor. There's none of that on the record from the high-res digital source. So I paid $70 total for this album. I got to show you the package this came in. This is crazy. Okay, here's the package, right? And then we have bubble wrap that held this record in between this thick package right here. We have guards so it doesn't get messed up. I mean, this is insane. So, yeah, I mean, it's worth it. First of all, it's 180-gram vinyl. It is the best packaging I've ever seen, both on the record and, the box it came in. It's not my first, quote-unquote, high-end pressing. I have a lot of RTI pressings from the early 2000s, and a few things I've picked up through the years that are fantastic. I have also picked up some 180-gram vinyl records that were just absolutely horrible. What stands out is on Amazon, they were selling Stevie Wonder's Musicarium, a double disc set, and the record was beautiful. I mean, it was well done, but then the tape they used to actually cut it was horrendously bad. And one of the things that I have found out since doing research on Chad's efforts to reissue albums is that he will not do it unless he can get the original master or a very good safety copy. This particular Motown release that I'm talking about, they had a probably 6th generation safety work tape that they had used to cut records from at Columbia House or something like that. It was horrendously bad. I mean, I actually threw the record away and then went and bought an original pressing, which wasn't as good. It was noisier, but at least the stereo imaging wasn't all messed up because the noise reduction system was mistracking on that Stevie Wonder album. So is it worth it? Yeah. I got to tell you, it was really quite the experience to hear this. I'm super impressed. And I just had to pass this on, that if you want a little fun in your life and you're a record collector and you've been picking them up like I have at yard sales and Discogs and eBay and wherever else you get them, and you're looking for original copies, if there's a particular album out there and they have done one of these super high-end versions of it, I would say that it's worth getting. I'm going to be buying from them again, that's for sure. They've got a few other things up there that I'm eyeballing. Like they have a double album 45 cut of Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms. I'd like to hear that as well. And that's also a digitally mastered album. What's the matter with me? I thought it was all about analog. No, it's not. It's about the best quality you can get from where you can get it. So anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. And I have no affiliation whatsoever with Acoustic Sounds, but I will put a link in the description for this video so you guys can go check it out for yourself. They also sell used records from the Vinyl Vault, and these are really high quality used records, and some of them are quite expensive. There was a Billy Joel's Greatest Hits double LP in there that I was looking at, and I think they want $95 for it. I'm like, oh my goodness. But then again, it's certified perfect, so if you're into that sort of thing, there you go. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this. I just wanted to share this with you guys. I'm really impressed with the sound of this particular record. And they have reissued all the Steely Dan going back to Can't Buy a Thrill. Whether I will buy another one of these, I don't know. At $70 a pop, I may just stick with my original pressings. Or who knows, I might get a wild hair and buy Asia next month when I get paid. If I do, I'll let you know. Talk to you guys again soon.